I had finally gotten backtracked with reality after the disappearance of my wife and kids
Oh,
2 years
wow.
ago.
Where's the story going? Holy cow, that just took a crazy turn, huh? I think we all have heard plenty of haunted house stories, right? Or haunted businesses. Whether or not they're open anymore or shut down. We've watched a lot of animations on this channel about haunted places. But what about haunted objects? Not the hospital or the insane asylum or the hotel. I mean the doll that came from grandma's house that just happened to have a curse on it. Like The Conjuring or Annabelle. And there's something about dolls that's truly creepy, man. I had a friend of mine when I was growing up. Their mom collected these porcelain dolls, right? And this was, I mean, you and I both watched Child's Play, right? The whole doll thing early on in life was scary. I mean, it was a classic example of cute things that have came to life to be evil. And dolls were just, they were not in my playbook. I didn't want to have nothing to do with them. And going over to their house and seeing that entire case of porcelain dolls at night, like when you'd get up from, you'd go sleep at your friend's house or whatever, and imagine being in a strange house, just wanting to get a glass of water and having to pass by that doll case on the way to the kitchen. No thanks, not again. I can still picture some of them. It's very, very creepy. Nothing bad ever happened, but it gave me nightmares. At any rate, we're gonna watch a video today by Spooked that's about haunted objects or cursed objects. So do me a favor, go on over to Spook's channel, click the subscribe button, click the notification bell, and if you like reaction videos like this, click subscribe on this video as well. Let's get into the story.
Weighted blankets. You've heard of them. They started as a tool to help calm autistic people and people with anxiety and insomnia.
I never knew what they had originally for. I thought somebody just made it up and it was cool. I have a weighted blanket and I didn't know there was different weights to them. I know that's got to be the silliest thing you've ever heard, right? But seriously, I ordered a weighted blanket and it's a little bit too heavy for my wife. Personally, I like it, but in a two-person bed, it's really, really hard to maneuver around, and it is a little bit too heavy. If it was half the weight that it would be, it's perfect, because, man, when you start snuggling under a weighted blanket, it's so good.
Over the last few years, they've grown into a popular household item, and with good reason. They're comforting. We'd pay just about anything for some comfort. Do you ever notice how that's most of what we spend our money on now? Us single guys? Why do we constantly crave to be comforted? My life wasn't particularly uncomfortable. Not then. I had finally gotten backtracked with reality after the disappearance of my wife and kids 2 years ago. I had sold our little house in the suburbs, gotten a cheap apartment close to my job, attended all the therapy appointments the police and caseworkers recommended, and gone back to work.
Where's the story going? Holy cow, that just took a crazy turn, huh?
I still couldn't sleep for more than an hour or two a night, even with the medications they gave me, but that was okay. The worst of it was over. Shock and grief can only last so long. I got one anyway, ordered the thing off Amazon, in queen size, like all my bedding, even though my queen no longer slept in it. It arrived ridiculously late. I'm a Prime member, and I selected the free 2-day shipping, but it at least had gotten there, so I didn't send a complaint, despite the state it was in after its long journey, not in the familiar smiley cardboard box, but in a shapeless lump haphazardly placed halfway on my front doorstep, halfway in the parking lot.
Prime? Prime don't do it like that, man. There's so many TikToks right now about the way the different shipping companies in the US handle freight, like FedEx and Amazon Prime and UPS and the Postal Service, and they go from one extreme to the other. It's hilarious. You should watch some of them.
I've been clumsily wrapped in brown paper and then tied with a string and possibly kicked the whole way here from the look of it. It's like a quaint rustic thing. I announced to no one in particular as I dragged it into my apartment. A present from Grandma, back home, on the ranch. But even talking to myself couldn't convince me. It looked like a bomb, delivered straight off the
Wow.
set of an action movie. The package was beaten up, stained, and the rough jute string was frayed and nearly falling apart. It looked singed in several places too. It
Like
took me 2
burnt?
hours, 3 gin and tonics, and a hearty microwave dinner to work up enough courage to actually open the thing.
Really?
The blanket was bundled into a poorly folded cube, held together by another length of the same string that had bound the paper. I wasn't impressed with its packaging, but the blanket itself looked alright. Plush, quilted blue microfiber with thick seams, and felt like it was the right weight.
All right.
It smelled normal. You know, that clean but vaguely chemicalish odor new blankets have. I checked the tag, wondering if I ought to clean it, but the ink was smeared and blurry. It seemed risky to throw in the washing machine without knowing the correct settings to use.
Yeah.
So I just threw it over my duvet and went about my business.
Just dry clean it.
At around midnight, I decided to give it a try. I had nothing left to lose. I'd spent hundreds of dollars on my bed over the past few months. The newest and best quality memory foam adjustable cooling mattress, 1,000-count Egyptian cotton sheets, customizable filling pillows, and none of it had brought me a single good night's sleep.
Dang.
Honestly, I expected the same to happen that night, but it was fun to pretend. I slid between the cool sheets and pulled the blankets up over me. The new blanket was a bit lumpy, but I knew from reading reviews that this was normal due
Yeah.
to shipping
Yeah.
and would smooth out over time. The weight was immediately noticeable, and
Yeah.
to my surprise, I felt comforted.
Yeah.
When I closed my eyes, I imagined my youngest two had crawled into bed with us and were laying on top of me,
gosh.
suppressing giggles as they tried not to wake me up.
Okay, that hurts. I can't. I just need a second to break from that emotion right there before I start tearing up. But I ain't gonna lie, y'all. A bed with a weighted blanket, if you haven't tried it, you have to. You have to. It's weird how he said you felt secure. It's strange. It's some crazy psychological or physiological, I don't know the right word for it, things that happen when you feel the weight of this blanket on you. It's so snuggly. I'll be perfectly honest to you. I have slept better with a weighted blanket than I've ever slept before. For real. Yeah, I seriously need to order another one that is the correct weight, because the one that I have is just too heavy. But man, I gotta tell you, if you've never done it, you should try it. It's cool.
An artfully folded section of the blanket at my back became the familiar bulk of my life beside me, and when I opened my eyes again, it was 10 in the morning, and I was late for work.
Wow.
I've never been so thrilled to receive a write-up. That weird chemical smell didn't really fade though, and gradually it became more noticeable. By the end of the week, I could smell, or imagined I could, the strange, neutral odor on my skin, even after a shower.
Wow.
By the end of the month, it had become unbearable. I took it to a dry cleaner's, thinking that I had been lazy because I was so enamored over my renewed relationship with sleep. I was ready for the elderly Korean woman behind the counter to judge me over the stink. I had my excuses rehearsed. Work was crazy, I'd had it in my car and forgotten, and I had Indian food for lunch and forgotten the leftovers in my car over the weekend, which had amplified the smell. But I didn't have a chance to recite this story. She only waved a handheld metal detector over my blanket and said, "Filling wrong, can't clean. Try spray with Febreze. You can get on Amazon."
Wow.
I couldn't imagine what about the filling could be wrong, and I told her so. Sure, it was still a bit lumpy from shipping, but Amazon had listed the filler as polypropylene, and all the reviews recommended dry cleaning.
Huh.
Metal, she explained, then shooed me out of the door with 20 pounds of smelly quilt in my arms.
Wow.
Another month of beautiful, comfortable sleep went by before I couldn't live with the smell anymore.
Just get another blanket, cuz.
People had begun to comment on it at work. Megan, my manager, had tactfully suggested I check my laundry machine to see if maybe a rat had gotten in there and died or something.
That's an awkward conversation to have with an employee. So James, listen. Some of the some of your coworkers around the office have made comments that I have to agree with, that there's a smell coming from you, and before you say anything, I really think that it may be a problem with your washing machine. Can you imagine how to approach this? That's gotta be so awkward. And the worst thing is he knows, right? But look, the man just said he spent hundreds of dollars on his bedding and stuff like that. Just get another blanket, man. The other one stank. You just ordered it on Prime. You should have sent it back. You got 14 days, no questions asked, man. Oh.
That was my last straw. I came home determined to get rid of the blanket and buy a new one. But you know what happens when you lose your entire world with no answers? You start to cling to things. You hoard them.
Oh, no.
Because you can't lose the comfort they bring you. I tried 6 dry cleaners before I found one who spoke enough English through a heavy Boston accent, but you can't have everything, to explain it to me. Sometimes they fill these with glass beads, he said. The factories that make the beads, they'll lose a screw or some metal fillings in the batch, and it all goes into the blanket. Machines and factories, you get me? Yeah, so what you can do is cut the seam a little and dump the balls into a bucket or the bathtub or something, throw the blanket into the wash, hanging up to dry, then you just pour them back in and sew it up.
Huh.
I told him I didn't know how to sew. You can get a funnel off Amazon for a few bucks, he said, and shrugged at me in a particularly apathetic sort of way before turning back to a pile of stained panties. I did exactly that. It took a week to ship it, which was annoying, but it was a bank holiday that Monday, so the delay made sense. Armed with my funnel and a bucket, I pulled the edge of the blanket over the bed and cut a tiny hole into the seam near the corner. I expected the bees to come pouring out into a clattery flood as soon as I dropped the corner into the bucket. Instead, there was a single, loud thump as a lump of something metallic hit the plastic. I peered into it and saw a gold circle, a wedding ring with a fingerprint carved into it, and an inscription on the inside that I couldn't see because of a chunk of meat and bone were still inside it. But I knew what it said. It said, "To love one's eternal glory." It was my fingerprint on the band. My mind went blank, and I lost control of my legs, forcing me to sit heavily on the edge of my bed. The motion tucked the blanket over a few inches, and more of the filling came out. This wasn't a flood, it was more of a heave, like the blanket was vomiting up pieces of crumbling dry flesh and bone. Like a cyst being squeezed, thick clumps of horribly recognizable stuff squirted out into the bucket.
Is your skin crawling right now? Oh my god!
My oldest son's teeth clattered loudly against the sides, and I saw flashes of silvery fillings from the cavities caused by gum disease he'd inherited from his mom.
Oh my god.
There was a scrap of almost bleached white Hello Kitty Band-Aid wrapped around a tiny knuckle joint. And I remembered how my daughter had scraped her finger, knocking loudly on her brother's splintered bedroom door, and how she'd smiled through her tears when she saw the special fun Band-Aid her daddy had put over the scratch.
Bruh.
I've been sleeping for 2 months beneath the heavy weight of 1,000 mummified pieces of my wife and children's bodies. The cops couldn't trace the package, even though they tried. The security cameras in my apartment complex showed an unmarked brown van with no license plates, which dumped the package directly from the window onto my front step. There was nothing to track. Amazon's lawyers provided evidence proving they packed and shipped the correct, boxed and labeled blanket. Let me be fair to them. I must say they offered me a prompt refund, in-store credit.
Oh my god,
But
seriously?
I won't be buying anything off Amazon ever again. I've gotten rid of my Echo, that was the first thing I threw out, along with all my new bedding, and I canceled my Prime membership, just for good measure. I threw out my smartphone and smartwatch as well. Amazon and smart technology are convenient, and that's great, but it's not worth the risk if things like this can happen. It's the only possible explanation. After all, how else could they have found the bodies?
Guys. I am blown away. What the heck, dude? That has to be one of the creepiest stories I've ever heard in my life. Man, here we were, just relaxing in our own little world. And then, all of a sudden, these horrible images started pouring in to our minds. I gotta tell you, man, the art of storytelling is incredible. First of all, I love Amazon's service, yo. I do. I don't normally, they don't sponsor me to say this or anything, but I really do love their service. I use a lot of it, you know. I really do. I order stuff from there all the time, more than I regularly shop around here, because, I mean, I've said this before to my wife, you know, I'm like, traditional retail is dying, and the reason why it is because when you think about, I won't say who, okay? I'll just say a prominent, because I don't mind talking good about products, but I ain't trying to bash no brands, okay? But if you go to one of the most prominent electronic retailers in the world, you go on over to this store and you're either greeted by people that you really don't want to talk to, or you're just completely ignored. And when you do get the help that you need to get an item that's either behind some, you know, on a shelf or in the warehouse or in a locked cage, a secure item, you get this sales spiel about a bunch of things that you don't even care about, like extended warranties and service plans. Most of the time, the salespeople aren't knowledgeable about whatever the heck they're actually selling to you. And on top of that, you get fed all of this stuff at the cash register about reward programs and everything else. It's just a very tiring experience, and I don't like it. But on Amazon or competitive retail sites, all you can look up exactly what you find. All of the information is there for you. They have reviews based on what other people that have bought the product already have to say about it, and they even have a ton of results on the other side of the screen about things that either go well with the item and or things that actually are competitive with the item. You can see different sites for them. It's completely effortless, in my opinion. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not trying to sell you on the service, because they sure don't sponsor me to say this. But in general, it's just so much more pleasant than dealing with that, the typical retail experience. Kind of like going to the local game retailers and asking them about a video game versus just getting it on Steam. It's completely night and day. At any rate, guys, I really hope that y'all enjoyed this story. I think it was a good one. Go over to Spooked's channel and subscribe to him. Click the notification bell there. And if you like reaction videos like this, guys, click subscribe on this channel as well. Thanks so much for watching. As always, this is Zueljin signing off, and we'll see you next time.